Hello, I'm Lauren, and welcome to Improving the World. I'm an international improviser based in Hong Kong, and I speak with amazing women of improv all over the world. Today I speak with Liz Peters. She is a Brit living in Brighton, England, and we're looking at how you take that niggly little voice, that lack of confidence or whatever it is, that inner critic, and shut her down, especially live during a show. You got questions? Liz got answers. I hope that you enjoy. Today I am joined by the kind human Liz Peters in Brighton. Hello!
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm in a spotlight, so frankly, I'm in my element.
You look fabulous, darling.
Kindly. We are talking today about turning off one's inner critic, that niggling voice that just wants to tell you something perhaps other than reality or remind you of moments. You've written a book which covers some of the things that we're going to talk about. When one goes on stage, you inherently are being vulnerable when you are getting up and letting people look at you. That can be for people overwhelming and intense. What do you think? The inner critic popping up and how to manage.
I mean, I've been performing all my life in various different forms as an actress, a musician, many different ways. And for me, improv is probably the most vulnerable and the most risky of ways to go on stage because you don't know what you're going to do. Even if you are playing a character, which usually you are, everything that comes out in that moment comes from you. There isn't the safety net of hiding behind a script that somebody else wrote or a piece of music that somebody else made. It is, oh, what did you, Liz Peters, manage to come up with in that moment? So that's such a risky place to put yourself, I think. Firstly, I would just acknowledge that it's absolutely fine if that makes you a bit scared. But what improv does have, which is beautiful, is it happens and then it's gone.
Sometimes the inner critic pops up as a voice. For me, it's this inner mantra, oh, why'd you do that? Or something. It's my own voice. For you, is it like that? This scratching at the same moment over and over? Or how does it manifest for you?
In different ways. One way that I will experience inner critic on stage is a physical resistance, noticing that I'm not really moving forward or doing anything. Perhaps it might manifest itself as outbursting, saying something stupid, saying something like, often a big dramatic emotional response to something which is kind of wild. It can come up as well as comparing yourself to other players, judging yourself. You never do the thinky stuff, you always do the stupid. Oh, look, there you are, you're playing that old lady again. You've done this character before. Oh, there can be a low-level self-observation and self-critique that happens. The more I've done improv, the longer it's gone on for me, the more I realise how unhelpful that is in the moment. Utterly pointless. All this sort of self-critique and self-awareness does is limit play. The only thing you want to do on that stage is to play, be in the flow, allow something to come out, and the voice just stops it.
What you just said was in the moment. So you're talking about I'm on the stage and I'm actively going, oh, why did I do that? Why did I say that? I should, whatever. So it's not even the aftermath of a show and the looking back retrospectively, but this present tense. You're saying that it is maybe unhealthy to be doing that right now. Is there a healthy way to do that? Is it maybe healthy to do a personal debrief afterwards? And is there a good time to do that and a good way to do that?
If you want to be a good performer, if you want to be good at your craft, in any craft, you need to be able to critique your own work, definitely. If you can't critique your own work, that's fine. Everyone should be able to do improv, play as much as they like. But if you want to get to like a really high level where you're being paid to do it, and you got to be able to brush up your weaker points in any art form, in any skill. There is place for doing that, for becoming aware of it. That place is not in a show while it's happening. That is the least helpful of times to start being like, hey, you got to change up your character stuff or something, So
Can I please have that be my inner voice? That would be such an upgrade. I adore that.
You are welcome to it. You can have it be me in your head.
Okay. Okay, so not on the stage, check in with yourself after the show. And to make sure that I'm not always now looking back at my show, holding myself to that last one, whether or not I thought it went poorly or well, how can I take that post-show thinking, self-criticism in a healthy way and think about it, use it, put it to the side on pause so that I can keep going and do the next show and not be affected by it?
I would say immediately after a show is not the time to start beating yourself up, because you are still in that very live moment of you've just been on stage, you've just put yourself out there, you're wide open, you've done it, you did what you did, hopefully it was good, and maybe it wasn't one of your best, who knows. Straight after the show, that's not the time. Your perception of a show, your experience of a show will be coloured by the way that you think about it immediately afterwards. Your memories are never really accurate, they're just built on of what you thought and then remembering what you thought and da. My encouragement is to remember the good things. This is something that we do as a company straight after a show. We always pull on that thing that you did was great. I really loved that thing. That thing was brilliant. And in that moment, we don't criticize anyone's work. In fact, we very rarely criticize anyone's work because we love each other and we love improv and we think it's fun. It's something that I would encourage as well to try and do for myself. And I think this is a lifelong habit to try and cultivate if you are someone who experiences the undulating fun and drama of being a critic quite a lot. Try and use that moment to pull on the positives, because if you don't pull on the positives, then you're going to forget them. They'll disappear into the mire of the, oh God, I played the old man again. Why do I always play the old man? Try and stay positive, find the fun, and then how to let go of it. It's a combination of body and brain. Actually shaking stuff out can be incredibly therapeutic. So taking your breath and being like, this was the show I did, love it or hate it, this is what happened, and then literally just let the thing go, throw it out.
Fully envisioned you throwing plates on the ground like a dancing Greek, like a celebration. You finish a show and then you just smash porcelain. This is what I'm seeing.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. You drink at the bar. Juice. Yeah. You do the circle up and the company all says things. When you do that, you only say things about others. So I say like, oh, Bradley, you totally nailed that. Or you also go like, BT dubs, I really think is it only others?
That's not a rule, but I think because we are British, we don't like to blow our own trumpet too much. Occasionally,
do that for me, please. Thank you. Okay.
We stand in a circle and we're like, great thought of pulling that bit back from the story, or lovely character there, or whatever. Occasionally one of us might go, I really like that song I did. I actually find that quite awkward, even though we should feel like we can embrace our failures and our wins in equal measure. But there is something in my upbringing or makeup which is, don't show off.
I guess there's this perception that being a tall poppy is the antithesis of humbleness. And I don't think that they have to be mutually exclusive. I personally feel like you can be a humble and kind individual and still be aware of the things that you've done well. And saying that, I caveat this with, do you ever notice how if someone goes, oh, I love your jumper, it's so nice, many people in many societies will undercut the compliment. So they'll immediately go like, oh, it was on sale. My brother gave it to me, it's a hand-me-down, whatever. So when people say things to me, whether it's improv or otherwise, I will often own the thing and say, yeah, that is true. I'm okay with being great at this or having these skills because there are other things that I'm now going to tell you about, like I'm really short and I can't reach cabinets. So I'll be like, yeah, I'm totally fine with the fact that I'm great at this because I can't reach cabinets. So it has to balance out.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
I know. It's so interesting, isn't it? So many of us do that. Yeah. Honestly, no, we're both performers, but we'll have had, both of us, shows that were phenomenal, where you were just like, I am firing on all cylinders. Pow, pow, this is good. I'm good at this. We've had those shows, and we've had shows where you go, I'm clunking my way through this. It feels like work. We've had both of those, and yet maybe it's a cultural thing, not celebrating the joyful shows, the moments where you're like, damn, I'm good, as much as we can do. I'd like to own that a little bit more. It's a great feeling when you're in that show and you're like, yeah. Although here's a funny thing, I don't know if you find this, you're doing a great show and suddenly you become aware you're doing something that's good, and then at that point you're like, and you kind of lose the capacity to continue to be any good in that moment, because you suddenly kind of turn the focus on yourself and gone, you're actually doing all right. Like, it almost puts the shutters down.
I think that because there are different brainwave states. When you're in, is it beta brainwave flow when you are in fun? I can't remember, but there's like alpha, beta, and I don't know. Someone help me. Gamma, kappa. I'm just naming fraternities now. But I think that one is the more playful, creative space, and another one is a little bit more like functional and thinking. Hence why you can't find your keys. You do something fun. You think about something else. You can find the keys. Or you're playing in one brainwave state, and if you come out of it to do the thinking and like, oh, the audience and this and that, and we got to break for the bar, and you are aware and you're in a meta awareness state, you break that because you've jumped out of it, be in a thinking space.
Absolutely. Divergent thinking and convergent thinking is the outward thought of play, where you're just in flow and it's just happening and then as soon as you put any critique or observation on it, you've gone convergent. It just shuts it down. Something I find quite fascinating. Disney, obviously a very successful chap.
I've never heard of them. What's that?
He does it was a guy, he started a company. They did like animations and stuff, like with mice. Animations with mice.
Of the mice, yes.
Yeah. I don't know if this is still the case with the Disney thing, but certainly when good old Walt was in charge, they would have 3 rooms in their creation process. And one was the dreamer room. This is basically your improv yes and room. Anything is possible. No idea is a bad idea, just like flowing fountain of possibility. And there were 2 other rooms. One was the critic room, where you rinse everything through all the problems. And then the realist room of how do we action this? How do we make it possible? And I think that when we do our improv, the realist room we can leave for now, but the critic room and the dreamer room, that's something that also happens when we're improvising. We can be in the dreamer room and keep making possible and flow. So back to Walt, he would only allow people to go into one room at a time, so they could only be in the dreamer room and the creative process room, and they could not criticize in that room. And then they would go to this other room, and that's where they could do their other work. So we kept those 2 processes very, very separate. And that's, I think, what we absolutely have to do as improvisers in that present moment. We have to keep those processes separate. We cannot allow ourselves to be in flow and critique at the same time, because it just doesn't work. One negates the other in that moment.
Disney's putting them in literally physically different spaces, and you can't be in more than one, otherwise you're like a wizard. So you have to do that self-monitoring to make sure that they say separate mental states. For I'm hearing you say the health and well-being of one process. If they were dual processes, they wouldn't function in the same kind of way, that one leads to the next, and that they are intentional pillars or steps rather than this combined ball of yarn of thinking mess. If you're talking about the beautiful Disney trifecta of rooms, I'm thinking about the thing that the Maydays does. Whoever thought this up, well done you, person in the internet hole. I love this, and I think I may steal it. We shall gift this to you all of the 4 people watching. Every now and again, the Maydays will get together and have a wee chat, and I'm envisioning like, pizza and white wine. And you say, this is what I love about what you do. This is what I have seen you improve on or develop throughout the time of working together. And this is what I'd like to see you do more of. That, I'm hearing you say, is almost a really good example of those 3 rooms in states of observation. So you're observing and seeing these things, what's going on, how to improve, and then not someone critiquing themselves. It's a colleague who sees and observes, because you said, right, your memory is only your own altered documentation of what happened, not necessarily reality. Someone else saying it to you has a different kind of impact.
When we're talking about how do we critique our work, this is a great time for it. And we do it in the most loving way that we can as well within the Maydays, because as we discussed, it's a vulnerable thing. And everyone kind of is aware of their weaknesses, I think. We're probably more aware of our weaknesses than anyone else is. But one thing about what do I love about you. It is such a beautiful thing to offer to your teammates. Some of us get so wrapped up in what we're not good at and what our weaknesses are that we forget what our superpowers are. We forget the thing that brings us alive, that excites people to play with us. Spend so much time thinking, oh, I wish I was better at wordplay or whatever your question marks are. For me, something that often comes up is energy, physicality, commitment to character, because those things come quite easily to me. I forget that they are, in some other people's eyes, my superpowers. There might be someone there who's really, really brilliant at game of the scene or helicopter arc of a show, which is some things that I always try to work on, who might be there going, I wish I could do a silly voice, you know, and I got a whole raft of silly voices. So that's a really good part of it, because it reminds you that people like to play with you, that every person in the company brings a different bag of superpowers, and as a unit you get to be the Avengers. So that's a really, really nice part of it. What have I seen you develop? I think this also is huge. As improvisers, as anyone in any craft, there is an upward trajectory and then it plateaus, and you go, we live with ourselves and we live with our every improv move and thought, that we might not realize the progress that we've made and the things that we've taken on or got better at. So that's a nice thing. But with people that you know really well, I've been in the Maydays for over a decade, so I know them, they know me. It's great to observe that. And then what do I want to see more of? I mean, this is something to take tenderly with your team. If there's enough love and trust in your company, then what do I want to see more of is just a way of coaxing out new things from each other and allowing you all to improve your skill set as a unit. Avengers squared.
You've written a book. What is the name of your book? And when you did said book writing, which I have not done, and I think based upon the emotional and just crazy breakdowns people writing books have that I've heard about, and like how intense it is and how bananas it is. What were your learnings?
My book is called Own It. Own It! How to boss your fears, free your voice, and inspire the room. Well, one thing I learned when writing a book is it's hard. That's one thing I learned.
That's why I'm not writing one.
It's hard and it's lonely. It highlighted for me how much I love improvising, because the permanence of writing a book allows for so much self-judgment to come in, of like every sentence you write, you're like, oh, but this will last forever. Whereas you do a show, and as we were saying, you turned off the critic room. That's not there. It's not allowed in because there's no space for it in a show. Oh, I'm also great. Yeah. Writing a book, you can edit relentlessly, endlessly edit, endlessly question everything you do. That process made me realize how much I prefer improv, but also that it was lovely for me to finally have something tangible. So it's something I could actually hold, whereas improv is like, and it's gone. That was really nice. Put so much thought and to formulate all my ideas and my learnings and pull them into one place and start to knit them together and go, okay, what did I learn from my years as an actress? What did I learn from my years as an improviser, from my years in embodiment coaching, and seeing how they all wove together? There is an ethos of improv: listen, say yes, and commit. I guess people phrase it in different ways, but it's basically that. It's take in information, accept that information, and then act on it. And I could see how this is a fundamental life rule. If you can live by that, it comes through in so many disciplines that I've worked in. Listen, awareness, acceptance of that reality, and then an intention or an action beyond that. So I saw how all these things interwove, which was really, really, really useful. Another thing, I was looking at confidence a lot and inner critic, and it crystallized some things that were a bit nebulous for me. Understanding things like, how can we manage our breath in order to manage our state of mind? And then looking up the research that supports it and understanding that better, and cementing knowledge that I knew on a level that was good enough for me as an individual going through the world. Oh yeah, I get that. I get that your breathing affects your state of mind. I get that if you give your inner critic a little voice, it's helpful for you. But when you have to put that down into print, that's going to be eternal, then you want to be sure that you know, justify that and have the research and the evidence to support it, rather than it just being a lizpeters.com theory. That was really good for me. It's like, okay, I'm evidencing this. I know this to be true rather than just I feel this to be true.
Yeah, I'm never writing a book. Thank you. It was great. I'm so scared.
What are you writing?
No, I'm not writing.
Oh, you said you're never. I thought you said now
I'm never writing a book. I'm like,
it's good though. In a critic again, man. Like this is such a key thing. Night before the book came out, I was so scared. I was like, oh God, I've put it out there. There's no denying this is my point of view on this now. I can't backtrack. It's like, come on, much like when you're going on stage, you suddenly open your heart wide open and you go, here you go, world. This is what I got. Come and get it. Yeah. And some people resonate with it and some people aren't going to resonate with it. That's vulnerable. Again, anything artistic that comes from oneself is a very vulnerable thing to do.
Okay, Liz, penultimate question. When for you is improv the most fun? We've talked so much about this confidence and the criticism and but then this idea of getting into flow state, recognizing great physicality, and then if you can get into that really fun place, what for you is the most fun?
When it's utterly effortless. Your connection with your scene partner, you are on fire, you're on the same wavelength, you're almost telepathic. Words or characters or story is coming out of you naturally, it's just falling out of you. And you're almost out of body experience of observing the magic being created. And you have no part of that. You are the vessel with which the thing passes through. Those moments of utter connection with yourself, with the partner, with the moment, everything around you, absolutely magic. That's what we live for as performers.
Yes.
Yeah. Flow state. Anytime that you can take the brain out, leave the brain at the door. Sometimes I feel like when you do awesome shows that really hit and everyone's on fire and it's like, yeah, this is a great team. It's never I'm great, I'm doing a great show. It's this whole thing is just coming together, and that is utterly beautiful. It feels to me like someone's come inside my body with a pipe cleaner or a brush or something and just sort of cleaned it out from the inside. There's so much space inside, flowing out of your fingertips, flowing out of your eyes, your mouth. You're not thinking. The show is writing itself. And you're like, cool.
Analogy of getting your internal corporeal body cleaned out for doing a quality improv show potentially should be on large banners across the world. You can clean your soul with just an improv show. I feel like that is a tagline. I don't know if you were aware of it, but you were very much speaking from the chest and the heart. And we often touch, like I do, I touch myself here when I mean it, when I really love someone, all the stuff. Talking about these ideas flowing, coming, from here, right? So this idea that like it's so core and central, the location of inception, that it's coming out of you almost as if in a magical kind of way. Very pretty when I see it. Liz.
Yes.
You have said gorgeous things, but I challenge you to say one more. If you could share words of wisdom, if you could speak to the younger version of you, your improv community peers, or folks who haven't tried improv and they find this video, what do you want them to know? What are your words of wisdom?
It's a big question, isn't it? There's an awful lot that one can learn. Maybe tip number one, never stop learning. Never think you've got it. I will never be the master of improv. There's always so much you can continue to learn, continue to develop, and as you keep playing, learning from different people. Every improviser I play with, I take something new. It's like, oh, they have a magical quality of this. So yeah, I'll take that. Thank you very much. Don't stop learning. Never think you've got it. Keep on going. Another thing I would say is follow your feet. Trust your instincts. Trust yourself. I, in my early days of improv, spent far too much time on the side of the stage, feeling an impulse to do something and then thinking, I don't want to mess up the thing, or I don't know if that's a good idea. Negating my own impulses. And as I've got more experience, I've never really regretted following instincts. I've only ever regretted when I haven't. And that starts in the body. You feel the impulse to do, and then you're like, oh, no. Follow your feet.
In a movie where someone like wants to fight and they're being held back and they're like, let go of me, let go of me, let go. It's like that. There's an imaginary you behind you who's pinning you back and not letting you go for a split second. Then they're gone, but you want to go, you pull you back, and the moment's over, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And because improv is so quick as well, the moment you have that impulse, you've got to take it then. If you don't take it then, it's too late, and you'll spend your whole life regretting it.
If folks are in the Brighton region thinking that they need some sea, sun, I don't eat fish anymore, so tow fish and chips or something, I don't know, and they want to buy your book, hang out with you, see a Mayday show, throw money at you, how can they find you?
The best place to go is my website, www.lizpeters.com. And then I have links to the Maydays on there, which is my home team. You can also find them at themaydays.co.uk. But you can find pretty much everything you want to know at my website, lizpeters.com.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so very much for your time and your energy. It was really wonderful to speak with you.
It was very lovely to speak to you too, Lauren. Thank you.
All right, all. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lauren. This is Improving the World, and there's more where that came from. Bye, all. So, did you love the video? If you did, please say kind and wonderful things in the comments down below, and you could subscribe if you're feeling sassy, and look for more Improving the World. Thanks.